In this video, we'll go through the process of what actually happens at secondary inspection when someone enters the US at a port of entry. Stay tuned, and I'll see you on the other side. In this video, we'll talk about the process of secondary inspection and what happens at the port of entry when someone enters the US. But before that, if you're here for the first time, please subscribe to our channel, click that bell to be notified. We try to get videos every week. And also, if you have Instagram, follow us on Instagram. We have 2 accounts, and we'd love to connect with you there and answer your direct messages over there. So let's talk about the process of entering the US before we talk about secondary inspection. So when an individual arrives to the US, whether they come by land from Canada or Mexico, or when they arrive by a plane, at a port of entry, the first step before you actually able to come to the United States to set foot on US soil, you must pass an interview, a short interview with a US Customs and Border Protection person. And typically when you come from the airport, you see there's a big line, we're all waiting. Usually the lines are separated into US citizens and green card holders and all the other people that have visas or tourist visas or ESTA. It is important that at that point, the US Border and Customs Protection Officer will conduct a short interview with the person to determine if they are admissible, if they're eligible to enter the United States. And what do they typically want to find out? They want to know, first of all, why are you coming to the United States? What is the purpose of your visit? Another question they're asking is, what other countries have you visited before coming to the United States? Again, the reason why they're asking why you're coming to the United States is because if you are here on a tourist visa and you are going to tell them, or they'll determine that you're coming here to work, then you're not admissible, because as a tourist, your only purpose should be tourism, right? So that's why they're asking, what is the purpose of your entry? The reason they're asking what other countries have you traveled is because there are some countries that may raise an issue, maybe a problem for the person that is coming to the United States right now to be able to come here. For example, if you just visit us Iran before coming to the United States, it could be an issue. They may ask you more questions, so that's another common question for them to ask upon entry. And finally, they want to know if you have the right documents needed to be able to come to the United States. For example, if you have the right visa, if your visa is not expired, they're going to check that. And finally, they want to know the duration of your stay. So maximum you can stay on any visa is typically 6 months. So they'll verbally want to check with you if you really are going to be within the limits of your visa. So that's the kind of things they do in the initial inspection. They want to know why you're coming from, where you traveled before entry, do you have the right documents to enter, and what's going to be the duration of your stay. Now, after this initial preliminary discussion, they may determine that you have some issues that will cast some doubt as to whether you're actually admissible to the United States. At that point, the officer will send you to secondary inspection. So it's a separate area, it's a separate room. At most airports, they have different officers there. And the purpose of secondary inspection is actually to determine if they're going to let you in on that visit. What are they checking at secondary inspection? So in secondary inspection, it's much more detailed. They're going to ask history of your immigration history. They're going to ask questions about your travel history. They're going to ask questions about who you're traveling with. They're going to subject you to a personal search. They can look at your phone, your computer if you have that. They can look at CBP records for your prior visits and see if they contradict what you just told them. For example, if somebody is coming to the US too often as a tourist visa, and they would ask you, well, how many times have you visited? And you say, I've only been here for 2 times, but the system shows 7 times, that's an issue. They also are now searching the internet, so they can Google your name, they can Google your records and see what social media is out there about you. So if you say, I'm coming to visit, but in fact you're coming to work because social media shows that you have a speaking event somewhere. So those are the things they do. They're trying to get an overall picture. With a case where at secondary inspection, the officer searched the person's belongings and they found a business card. So that created an assumption, a business card with a US address on it, with that person's name on it. So that created the presumption that that person is working in the US, and he was not allowed to enter. Another search revealed a US bank account, and that was more of it opened the door for questions. Why do you have a bank account? And the person explained that it's just safer for them to carry money and put it in the bank account, so that was not a reason for them to deny their entry. So those are the things that happen in secondary inspection. Remember, the key is for CBP officers to understand if you are admissible, whether you have enough proof to show them that you're admissible or not. What happens if they determine that you're not admissible? So what's going to happen is that they're either going to turn you away, send you back on the next flight, or they're going to issue a notice of expedited removal, removing you from the United States for 5 years, or they're going to issue a notice to appear where you're going to have to go to court because the violation is more significant than whatever they find in your record. So this is typically what happens. We had a lot of cases where people were sent back because they just didn't satisfy the CBP's officers' requirements, and typically you get a form to sign. They issue an interview where they ask you questions. Have you ever worked in the US? Have you ever did this? Have you ever did that? All the questions they ask you, they'll actually have you sign the form with your picture on it and the fingerprints, and you'll be giving a copy of that form. It's very important because that will help in the future to try to get you a visa back if you get denied from entering the US. So that's typically what happens when you arrive at the port of entry, and more specifically in secondary inspection, where they have much more power to check, to search your belongings, to search you, and research your history coming to the United States. So hopefully this video helps. I think a lot of people were subject to secondary inspection recently, and if you know somebody that may benefit from this video, make sure that you share this video, subscribe to our channel. I want to hear from you in the comments. If you have questions or suggestions for future videos, make sure you post them in the comments below. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in our next video.